It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, January 12th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is also waiting for that Jamie Drysdale barking video.
Waiting for like normal winter weather. We're just getting weird weather.
There is a lot that we are waiting for. We will get to that, plus our weekend back-to-back preview coming up on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can find us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, I mentioned that Jamie Drysdale barking video, and it very well could have been released by the time you are listening out there or watching this podcast. But A, I want to see it. B, it's my birthday today, so I think I deserve it. And C, I think that it's indicative of, some of the results of having a Flyers team that's a little better this year and is doing some things differently. That I just feel like the feeling in Flyers fandom right now, amongst everything that's going on and the swirling around the trade, it's just a lot more fun and
Yeah,
playful.
no question. It's definitely more fun. The fans are definitely having more fun. Certainly, players are having fun, and that's nice. Yeah, I like to see that too. I do have to say though, and this is just me, like personal pet peeve. I don't mind the dog thing, and I like saying there's a dog in the person, but I don't like dog fighting. I've had to
No,
deal with
true.
that. And there is a point where sometimes, and seems more in football, where they kind of go over the edge and it almost makes you think about the dog fighting aspect of it. So I just hope it doesn't get to that point. If it just stays where it is, I'm fine.
Yeah, I think it is fine. I don't think they've been doing it for a while now,
Yes.
with the dog mask
Yeah.
and chain after a win for the player of the locker room player of the
Yeah.
game. And of course, they gave it to Jamie Drysdale
Yeah.
in
Of course.
that. But at least as of recording here, the Flyers social media has only released a still picture, and people are clamoring for that. A little more follow up to that debut. First off, kudos to the Flyers for getting Drysdale's parents in town. That was super cool,
That was nice.
and a really good gesture. We did not have a chance to talk about John Tortorella's press conference post game as it was
That
kind of
wasn't the game.
happening.
Just so people understand, like that was again, when we do the post game for this show, I can't stay there long enough to do John's press conference. There's just not enough time in the day. So I usually get to the locker room for one or two people. Either I split it or I do one, and that's it. And then I have to go up. I can't talk to any coaches. So I missed it, but I caught it right when I got out.
Right. And so kind of as we were doing that post game
Yeah, well, that's when I saw it
report,
when we were doing it. Yeah.
we sort of saw it happening as we were recording. But
Yeah.
I think that first off, absolutely wild. And I think that uh for John Tortorella to stick up for Kevin Hayes like that, I think it's I mean, of course you would in that circumstances, but he didn't have to do it. That's the thing. It's John
No,
Tortorella.
because I mean they were at odds last year, and he admitted as such.
Yeah.
But he, the human side said, "Hey, you shouldn't do that to this guy. He's got enough issues going on," and it's true. And I think
Yeah.
we all felt that way when we heard it. Like, really? we said a lot about Kevin Hayes last year, and really we just kept it to the hockey rink.
To the
Hey,
game, yeah.
looked a little slow tonight. Maybe he isn't trying as hard. Maybe he isn't with towards his system. All those things were true, but we didn't start looking at like what he was off the ice or digging into his
No.
character or anything like that.
Absolutely not. So that was a little fun, I think, bonus ride for fans as well who were
Yeah.
invested in this situation. I also think that to a large degree in Flyers fandom, we were just talking about this offline, that the conversation is starting to move on. And it's really
Mhm.
just the rest of the NHL that's still kind of mired in it. And
Right.
we're like, we're team Drysdale now. He's our guy. He looked great in his debut. Like excited to see what he does moving forward. Let's move on,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and I think that's how fans should be. I mean, it's best. It's best. Just, watch this guy develop. You've got a chance to watch a really good young player develop in your system. That's what
Yep.
you want. I mean, that's the most fun for me as a reporter because I'm a prospect guys. I want to see guys like this develop because I remember when I covered him with the Erie Otters and I want to see what he's like now. And those things are important.
And then one more side note, I think we all noticed how fast Owen Tippett was going in that last rush in overtime in that last game. And, we have that NHL Edge technology
Right.
right now with the trackers and everybody. And sure enough, according to Chasing the Puck on Twitter, the NHL Edge program has clocked Owen Tippett. That's the fastest speed of any skater so far this season in the NHL.
And what was the number?
24.21.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Braden Point is just a hair behind him at 24.15. But yeah, I think that's pretty remarkable for as many fast skaters as there are in the NHL, to have Owen Tippett, have the fastest time.
Yeah, just to kind of throw this into there. So way back in the old days when they had the jugs gun like they used in baseball, they timed Bobby Hull, right? Because he was one of those freaks where he was fast, could score, do all those things. Now they clocked him at 29.7. Clearly he was not going 29.7, but I do think he was going what Owen Tippett was going at his top speed. And for back then, that was kind of freakish. So it's like you could tell when something like that is sort of like, wow, like that was different.
Yeah,
You could tell.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It just felt just
Yeah,
from looking at it that he was going much faster than we had seen previously from
yeah,
anybody in a while. So
yeah,
it was good to see that the data backed that
yeah.
up. We're going to be looking ahead to this road trip, and we're going to talk about the Wild, and we're going to talk about the Jets, who are both going to be different kinds of challenges. But and then of course we have the Blues coming up next Monday, and I think that it's just it's an extremely important road trip, and I think the fact that we keep saying this, like we said this about the last road trip as well.
When it
Yeah,
stops
it's
being important, we'll let you know.
yeah, this the fact that the Flyers have stacked up enough wins and they have enough points. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets are the number one team in the NHL right now. Flyers are only 10 points behind them. Could
Mhm.
you imagine saying that at the beginning of the
No,
season
no
that the
way.
Flyers are 10 points off the first place team in the NHL?
No, and you wouldn't think Winnipeg would be that team either.
Well, that's true. But still, if
To
you
be
just kind
fair,
of put a placeholder top
yeah,
team in the NHL, halfway through the season, because this is where we are now. We're exactly halfway through the season.
right. Yeah, no, listen, it's all surprising that way, and it's interesting. Keeps things
Yeah, I
interesting.
think yeah, it keeps things interesting. It keeps things fun. I think, like I was just saying, this season has been a lot more fun for the fan base than I think even most of us were expecting.
Mhm.
And I love it. Love to see it. I'm enjoying the hockey. And so, yeah, this road trip, I think, will or could be a turning point here. And as far as, is this team going to remain in the playoff hunt for the rest of the season?
I don't know if this trip's going to do that because of the bye week. I think the bye week will grind things to a halt. But I think we're getting
Fair.
closer to that where we could start saying those things, but I'm not there yet.
That's fair. That's fair. I get it. I think, as far as one general part of the conversation, what are the Flyers gonna do for an extra forward on the road trip, or are they gonna stick with the 11-7?
I think they're going to stick with the 11-7. I hope that that's not the case. But if you bring Rhett Gardner, they're going to stick with the 11-7. Like, we know that. If that's the answer, then they're just going to do that. I just feel like I should be able to tell you something else, but my gut's just telling me that's what they're going to do. And they won with it last game. It wasn't pretty, but they won with it. So,
Right.
I think that's what they might do.
Yeah, I think I don't know. We just haven't heard anything either way on that
No.
front. And normally, I think even as of our recording time on Thursday, we would have known if there was a call up by now. Now
Yeah,
they could decide first thing in the morning
they could.
today. That
But it's
that's
hard to get to
possible
Winnipeg.
too.
That's the only thing. This is not like your average trip. It's like you don't
Yeah.
send somebody last minute to Winnipeg.
Well, they don't have an airport, so there you go.
That's why.
Um, the Flyers do play the Minnesota Wild at 8 p.m. Eastern because they're in Central Time. You can catch every second of the Flyers' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search for Flyers, and we are going to talk about those Minnesota Wild coming up next.
It's the halfway point of the season, Flyers fans, and the team is still in the playoff hunt. Regardless of where we are in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper's our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Fan can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, CFB, and which is college football on Sleeper, and entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether superstars like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, or Austin Matthews, plus the new guys like Connor Bedard, will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Flyers fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
On the show next week, of course, we'll be talking about this road trip and beyond. And there will be a special episode on Monday that I won't be there for. So look forward to Russ talking to Haley Simon from Locked On Blues and, of course, 97.5 The Fanatic. She covers the Flyers and the Blues. So it's a perfect opportunity to talk about both teams, and you'll get that in your feeds on Monday. Then I'll be back on Tuesday. Looking ahead to the Flyers against the Wild and the Winnipeg Jets, it's really interesting because the Wild and the Jets have some similarities to them as far as their stats. Both teams actually have worse face-off stats than the Flyers, which is I didn't know that was possible for two teams, but okay. And I think that both teams have pretty mediocre power plays, and for especially the Jets, which we'll get to more, that was surprising to me looking at those stats. But for the Wild, I think they have gotten better in the last month or so on the power play. Their numbers have increased a little bit, but both teams aren't great on the PK either.
No, I mean, look, the Wild are missing some key players, no question about it, but they still have a pretty good lineup here. It's going to be greasy, it's big, it's going to be physical. They have fast defensemen, fast and physical. It's kind of like a mix. So it's one of those games where they're going to try and keep the score down. And so I don't expect it to be a high scoring game either way. Uh, you get a guy like Matt Zuccarello, you always have to watch out for him. He's played a lot against the Flyers.
Yep.
Eriksson Ek is another one who, because he plays such good defense and he's physical, that he gets chances and he has a really good wrist shot. And Rossi is a guy that kind of slips through the seams and he's always around the puck and he's always going to get some 2 or 3 really good chances every game. he has 12 goals, and he's a pretty good scoring threat at this point now that he's healthy. So you got to watch out for those guys. And then most likely it's going to be Fleury, since
Right.
and Fleury knows how to play the Flyers. There's no question about it. Uh, he's been on a little bit of a roll. I think this is a game where he's going to pass Patrick Waugh in games played. So he might be really motivated here. So I don't expect this to be an easy one.
No, not at all. You mentioned the Wild missing some guys. Of course, Kirill Kaprizov is on IR, as is Jared Spurgeon, Philip Gustafson, and Vinny Lettieri.
Yeah.
So they're missing some key pieces here, but have managed to improve things a little bit since their coaching change. I think that it's a team that has been kind of lost in the woods a little bit this season, and they're still not out of it. But like I said, they are doing better, and they have been playing on average a little bit better. But it's still not there yet. The four
No.
and six in their last 10. They're in seventh in the Central. They are 20 points behind the Jets in that division, so much further behind than the Flyers are relatively. And their most recent win was against Columbus, but they've lost to Tampa, the Flames, and the Jets before that. And so I think that, and of course, lost to Dallas in a home and home, pretty shellacked in both games. Now Dallas is very, very good,
Yeah,
so
Dallas is a really good team.
yeah, but it just seems like they barely put up a fight. And Wallstead made his Wild debut versus the Stars. Did not go in the second game of that home and home. Did not go well overall. I feel bad for him.
Yeah,
Uh, but
super
yeah,
quality though. He will be.
I think this is a winnable game. This is
Mhm.
absolutely a winnable game, even on the road. And I just think that they have to start this road trip off right.
Yeah, I think it would be important. Don't go to the Mall of America. Just go to practice and take your nap. Don't worry about the other things in Minnesota. Uh, don't go outside if you can help it. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's a nice rink. It will be. They have a good fan base. It's pretty passionate. So no, it should be fun. I think this will be a fun matchup, and they should be getting geared up from this one to play the Jets. Like that's where don't overlook these guys to play the Jets, but make sure you start ratcheting it up because the Jets will be a different level than even these guys are, of course.
Yeah, and I think that it is interesting statistically comparing the Flyers and the Wild, because I mean pretty much everybody has a better shooting percentage than the Flyers. I
Yeah.
mean, I shouldn't say that. The
San
Flyers are
Jose,
not
Anaheim,
great.
and one other team don't. That's it.
Yeah, you're right. But I think that the Flyers get better quality shots than the Wild do. So I think that's just really like your remit in terms of defensively how you got to play them. That if you just keep them away from high danger areas, like you're going to reduce that shooting percentage for the Wild.
Sure, but they have guys like on the back end. Favors really fast and really smart, and he knows how to get a break going or make a play to get a break going. And Goligoski's still a really good offensive defenseman too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that is a really interesting top four they have defensively.
Yeah,
I think that Goligoski, Bogosian middle pairing is a really good one, and I think that it's going to be something they'll have to pay attention to
yeah.
in
And
this
Goligoski's
game.
offense has dipped, but I still worry about him. He's still wily.
So I do think that the Wild are going to present an interesting challenge for the Flyers here, and but they are beatable. They have 2.88 goals per game for, and like Flyers just have to score three. Honestly,
Yeah, three is what it looks like for this game, and um, the thing is, if you could jump out with the lead, that's good. They weren't able to do that last game, and last game they were down two, and they were able to come back. So you don't want to be in that position on the road. I think at home it's a little different than when you're on the road.
Right. Right. And I just think that they're going to have to continue to find some success on the power play. I think that is what's going to help them in a game against the Wild and the Jets to a large degree. But
Yeah, I mean,
um,
let's see him deploy the top guys for more than 30 seconds, especially after they score a goal. Let's be consistent with this. Like that's what
yeah,
I'm asking for is just consistency with that. I think the more you have Drysdale out there, the better your chances are.
right. And I think that, we did talk about that in yesterday's show, recapping that game, that hopefully they learned some of the lessons about where he can fit in the power play and they play him more because clearly he looked really good and
Yeah,
his like ability to go, across the blue line and find open lanes was, man, was that fun.
yeah, it's
So
way better than anybody they have on the team. Like that's just the way it is.
yep, yep. So just gonna keep an eye on how they set up that lineup. But, in the meantime, we have more to talk about, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. We will do that coming up next. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league like Locked On NHL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe. So the Winnipeg Jets, Russ, have some guys on IR of their own, Rasmus Kupari, Kyle Connor, David Gustafson, and Heinola. So I think that, um, they are obviously with more of their star power, I would say. And that top line of Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde, man, like,
Brutal,
wow.
brutal. I mean, to go against. They're big, they're fast, they're strong. They win face-offs. Uh, I mean, Velarde is, become what everybody thought he could be, and we're hoping
Yep.
after injuries. And so you got to watch out for his shot. Just that's a tough line. And this is, the thing about it now with the Flyers is, yes, the Flyers, you got better uh, moving the puck and offensively, but you didn't necessarily get much better defensively. And so, like this matchup, whoever they decide to match up against this top line is a key matchup to the game.
Right, and it makes me wonder if they're gonna shuffle things around a little bit to get more speed on the top line.
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna put Tippett on the top line just for that reason alone?
Right. Keep 'em on edge. It's not a bad idea because you gotta have some sort of threat there. You certainly well, there won't be really a fourth line if they go 11-7, but hopefully there's not. But you're not gonna match the fourth line against them. You do have to match the first line against them. And I think Couturier could hold up against Scheifele and do a pretty good job, but the rest does matter. And so,
Right.
yeah, yeah, that's gonna be a big deal because the forwards could certainly help out here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Jets, before last night, we don't know the outcome of that game, but they had a 7-game win streak going. So, they are clearly on a roll. They have a plus 43 goal differential, halfway through the
Seems good.
season.
Yeah, it seems pretty good.
Yes, seems pretty good. And, unlike the Wild who are below 3 goals per game, the Jets are well above 3 goals per game at 3.43. So the defense is gonna have to be, extra on top of things in this game to hold the Jets below 3 goals
Yeah, I
per
don't know if
game.
massive shot blocking is going to work against the Jets because they have
No.
a lot of speed that can go wide too. Excuse me. So it's like if they get the gist that they're going to clog up the middle with a lot of shot blocking, you got guys like Perfetti and who are really smart and can make things happen on the outside. And remember, they don't even have Kyle Connor, and it doesn't seem
Nope.
to even matter.
I know, it's unbelievable what they're doing, and, you look at their, special teams like I talked about, they have an 18% power play rate, which is 22nd in the
Yeah,
NHL,
it's
and you
not
would think
great.
it's not great, and for the team that's at the top of the league to have such a mediocre power play. It's like you wonder how they do it. Well, then you got to focus on your 5-on-5 play because clearly they're finding a way to score a ton of
Right.
goals.
Yeah, they're scoring 5-on-5, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's like you gotta look at your 5-on-5 defense and how that's structured and really focus on that more because I think the Flyers' penalty kill, as we know, is really good, and
Yeah,
so
it's definitely better than Winnipeg's. That saying,
yeah,
I don't know if I wanna really test that all that much, but,
no.
you know.
No, yeah, Winnipeg's penalty kill is 26th in the NHL. It is absolutely bizarre to me that the team that's leading the NHL has such terrible special
Well, because it
teams.
shows you that if you get good goaltending and your team is good 5-on-5, you could overcome a lot.
That's true. Well, and of course, like, we haven't even talked about Connor Hellebuck yet,
Right.
who is I'm not sure who we're gonna get, but my guess is that it'll be Hellebuck.
Yeah, at a home game, probably.
Yeah, so that's gonna be tough to beat, to begin with, and so the Flyers have just gotta be smart about their shots, and I
Yeah,
think we need, better quality shots than sometimes we get, and also just be smarter about passing in terms of don't overpass.
right. Right, last game, they did a good job, like, they, maybe had, like, 2 passes before a shot. That's good, but once you start getting past that, then there becomes that indecisiveness. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that'll do them a lot of good to get the shots off, smartly but quickly in
Right.
this situation.
Smartly but quickly, I like that. That could be an ad campaign.
I don't know about that, but yeah, the Jets are certainly a fun team to watch, that's for sure, and, they have almost a 10% shooting percentage, like we talked about, so pretty strong stats there, and they're at 5-on-5, as we were just talking about. So whereas the Flyers are at 7.83 at 5-on-5, that's a big difference.
Yeah, I think that is a big difference. So, but you don't know. You don't know until they match up. Matchups of styles can make a difference here.
Yeah, it absolutely can. So I think this back to back is going to be a really tough one for the Flyers. I certainly hope that can come out of here with all 4 points. But
No
remains to be
frostbite.
seen, and no frostbite, and they can get out of Winnipeg, who doesn't have an airport. But I'm gonna beat that joke until it's more than dead because I find it so amusing. But all that being said, again, a huge road trip ahead for the Flyers, and we will. Well, I won't be here, but the show will be back on
Ah,
Monday to recap the weekend and to preview the game on Monday against the St. Louis Blues, who are, I believe, the one team in the NHL with a worse power play than the Flyers.
yeah, yeah. That is true, and they've both been struggling. So it'll be fun to see. And don't worry, when you come back, everything will be disorganized. We'll mess with your pencils and your paper clips, and it's fine.
That is to be expected, but, have a great weekend, everybody, and, let's go Flyers.